My recent videos have talked all about writer's critique groups, so I thought you might like a concrete example of what a critique group can do for your writing. Today I want to discuss Proof, a 30th Street fiction anthology, How to Read Like a Writer. This collection is tied together by the theme of proof, and it has everything from science fiction, fantasy, to historical fiction and contemporary writing. I can say each piece was vastly improved by the feedback of my group. So today I want to walk you through how the group helped me improve my piece in this story. I'm going to share what feedback they gave me and how I implemented that for the Mortician's assistant. This is Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping writers like you transform your writing so it lingers with readers, because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. I want to start with adding punch. When I wrote The Mortician's Assistant, I was obsessed with in media res. I had just learned how to really use this technique where you start a story in the middle of action instead of at the beginning of a scene. And my writer's critique group quickly let me know this was not the best choice for this particular story. Often as writers, when we learn a new technique, we tend to overuse it at first to kind of get used to it and master it. So the original line of The Mortician's Assistant was, "The young woman, gaunt with years of drug use, lay on the metal table with her wild hair pulled into a nest at the top of her head." At first, this seems like a decent descriptive line, but there are some key things that it doesn't do. One, it doesn't tell you who the main character is. This is written in first person, and you don't know based on the first line. It doesn't tell you who the other characters are. It doesn't tell you what the character motivations are, or what the stakes of the story are. All of these things are super important and should probably be somewhere in the first few lines. The way I'd written my story, they weren't. My critique group let me know. They pointed out that I did backtrack and reveal the beginning of the scene later in the short story, and were like, why didn't you start here? So the published first line of The Mortician's Assistant is, "I never would have messed with the graveyard if I'd known I'd become a crazy man's assistant as punishment." What this new first line does is it lets you know who the point of view character is, and that we're in first person, what this character's motivations for working in the mortuary are, and how he feels about it. Might not show the stakes or the other characters quite yet, but it's getting that ball rolling and they're about to be introduced in the next few sentences. I still kept that other sentence, it just now happens on the second page instead of the first. That's how a writer's critique group can help you find a better hook for the beginning of your story. My critique group also helped me make a punchier ending. I'm the type of writer who sees the climax first. That's what my inspiration is. So I always know what that big ending moment is going to be. But after I've written that and the rest of the story, I rush through the resolution because I just want to be done. Every writer has an aspect of the story they tend to kind of skimp on. For me, it's the resolution. My writer's critique group knows this and they point it out frequently. So what they told me in this case was that my resolution had some great ideas in it, but it wasn't impactful enough because I hadn't spent the time making it impactful. After their comments, I went back and I changed the resolution into more of a scene. So now instead of just one paragraph, it's 5 paragraphs, and it has some dialogue and some character movement. And it still provides the same information, just in a different way. So your writer's critique group can help you find your beginning and your ending. A good writer's critique group should help you with the organization of your story as well as other aspects of your writing. Next, I want to talk about finding voice. I've already mentioned The Mortician's Assistant is written in first person. It was always written in first person. And while it's always had moments of snarky teenage boy humor in there, what it was missing was his true perspective. So my writer's critique group pointed out places I could add more of Clay. They reminded me that Clay is the one in this environment, so we should see the setting through his eyes. So I changed some of the descriptions to have more of Clay in there. I also included more of his thoughts and opinions on what was happening around him. In particular, I brought out how he felt about his tasks as a mortician's assistant. Because of them, I added lines like, I tried to convince myself I was sewing one of my little sister's dolls, a very wet, cold doll. In this moment, Clay has been asked to stitch up a corpse to help make her presentable for her family, and it's the first time he has to do this. In this line, we get to see how he feels about sewing a person, and also why he's already kind of good at it, even though it's his first time. He's sewn things before. Moments and lines like this make all the difference when it comes to how your readers connect with your characters. When you give them more of your character, they have more reasons to either like or not like them, depending on what you're trying to do, and also more reasons to get to know them and believe that they are a real person. That's what you want for your characters. You want your readers to believe they could exist somewhere. Sometimes you know all of this about your characters, but you forget to put it in your story. That's where a writer's critique group comes in. They will let you know when you're lacking in character development. They will also point out places where you can add that in. That's what my critique group did for me in my story, and I'm grateful for it. Next, I want to cover clarity. The beginning of the Mortician's Assistant contains a mechanical device that is hidden. That makes it difficult to describe. So immediately my critique group let me know they did not understand what this thing was or what it looked like. They didn't know how tall the plexiglass barriers were or how it could descend from the ceiling. So through multiple revisions, they helped me hone my description so readers can understand what is happening in this scene. This device is a vital piece of the story, so I really needed it to be clear. They helped me do that. They also let me know that I had done a great job focusing on describing this device, the characters, and what happens, but they couldn't really picture the mortuary. To them, it was just some generic building. So I went back and added in more descriptions of the setting, but I did it through my main character Clay's point of view. Here's an example of a line I added because of my critique group's comments. Even though we were ground level, the cold air, lack of windows, and shelves of neatly stacked supplies made the mortuary feel like a well-organized killer's basement. Not only does this line describe the mortuary, it also describes how Clay feels there. We know that it's ground level, but it doesn't have any windows. We know it's cold. We also know that Clay kind of is creeped out by it. With one line like this, I was able to describe the setting, develop my character, and create some mood and tone. One of the great things about critique groups is they read your piece without preconceived notions. They're looking at it as a story that they're trying to make better. Critique groups will point out areas that you need to clarify or dive deeper into your descriptions or dialogue or characters. That's what they're there for. So use them. Next, I want to share why an editor recommends writers read Proof, a 30th Street fiction anthology. Now that I've shown you how my critique group helped me with my story, The Mortician's Assistant, I want to share their stories from Proof, a 30th Street fiction anthology. I want to give you a taste of what you might get from this book and kind of give them some love back. If you want to read a page-turning contemporary story, take a look at Maggie Bryden's Bring a She-Goat. Pay attention to when and how she releases information, and how she uses this to build tension, suspense, and the stakes. To learn how to weave relatable conflicts like addiction and who to trust into a fictional world, read Kate Januska's Prince Charming. Look at her use of literary techniques and science fiction techniques. To discover how to mix religion and science fiction, read The Father, the Son, and a Glass of Holy Spirits by Richard M. Hamp. Notice how he expertly weaves humor into the character's point of view, perspective, and plot. If you like pieces that mix the past and the present and family secrets, read Dead Air by Ian K. Long. In particular, pay attention to how he manages to pull off both an adult and child perspective. If you're working on a story with different dimensions or planes, read Coyote Junction by Jessica Love for its clear transitions to and from another plane. Also notice how her main character's desire changes from the beginning and the end of the story. To learn how to create conflict between two characters without resulting to a screaming fight, read The Traitor by J.V.L. Bell. Pay attention to how she resolves that conflict, and how a secret can change the way two people view each other. If you're writing a story with electronic communication or AIs, read What's in a Name by Leslie Harrison. Pay attention to how she formats the dialogue between the AIs, and how the motivation and desire of the main AI are not cliché. There's something new and unique. Now that I'm done bragging about my critique group members, I want to let you know that this is how you should feel about your critique group. You should be excited to be in a book with them because you respect their writing that much. You should want other people to read them too. If you're in a group and you might feel embarrassed to be seen among those stories, why are you in that group? You should be among writers who you respect. Now that I've shared how critique improved my writing, I want to hear how critique has improved your writing. Share your lessons in the comments below. And for more videos on critique groups, revision, and other aspects of writing, subscribe to Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping writers like you transform your writing so it lingers with readers, because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. To find out more about me, go to www.ignitedinkwriting.com. There you will also find a revision checklist and a guide to critique groups. And now it's your turn to check out Proof, a 30th Street fiction anthology, and use critique groups to ignite your ink.